Daf Yomi, Tractate Chullin, page 35b, with the words, it's about one line into it. Meisiv Rabbi Yirmiyah midifti. Meisiv Rabbi Yirmiyah midifti. Umi amrinan beperi. V'atanan. Imamar yifrash l'taycha v'yez kodesh. Ne'eman. V'lo ko metame. In brackets it says metamya. Le truma lekodesh v'yam metal truma hi etzer lekodesh titame truma lekodesh. Rabbi Yirmiyah Difti raises an objection to the opinion of Rabbi Yitzchak. And do we say with regard to produce that if it was prepared with the purity of truma, it renders sacrificial food impure? But didn't we learn in a Mishnah in Chagiga 24b, it is not permitted for a priest to accept truma wine from an am haaretz? That means from a simpleton or someone who doesn't know the halachas. Ignoramus, I guess, is one way of saying it. So it's not permitted for a priest to accept truma from an am haaretz, but if an am haaretz says to the priest, I separated and placed into this barrel of truma wine a quarter log of sacrificial wine, he is deemed credible, and this indicates that truma does not render the sacrificial food impure. And if you say with regard to truma that its state of impurity is impurity vis-a-vis sacrificial food, that the truma render the sacrificial food impure. Amar le tuma bechibun kamet, tuma bechibun shani, demigo debeheman hakodesh beheman namya truma. Rabbi Yitzchak said to Rabbi Yirmiyah Difti, are you saying that there is an objection to my opinion based on the case of impurity in the case of food items? The truma wine and the sacrificial wine that are attached in one barrel. Impurity in the case of food items that are attached is different. As since the Amoritz is deemed credible with regard to the sacrificial food, he is deemed credible with regard to the truma as well. Meisiv Rav Huna bar Natan Hasheni shebachulin metam mashke bechulin u'pois loich truma v'shlishi metam mashke kodesh u'pois loich lekodesh bechulin shenasu al taharas hakodesh. Rav Huna bar Natan raised an objection from a brayta to the opinion of Rabbi Yitzchak with regard to rendering sacrificial food impure with fourth degree ritual impurity. Non-sacred food that is impure with second degree impurity renders impure through contact a non-sacred liquid, which assumes first degree impurity and disqualifies truma foods in the sense that those foods are impure but do not transmit impurity to other food. And non-sacred food that is impure with third degree impurity renders impure through contact a sacrificial liquid and disqualifies sacrificial foods in the case of non-sacred food items that were prepared on the level of purity of sacrificial food. This contradicts the opinion of Rabbi Yitzchak, who said that there is nothing that confers fourth degree impurity in sacrificial food other than consecrated sacrificial food alone, but not non-sacred food prepared with the purity of sacrificial food. Tanaihi detanya chulin shenasu al taras kodesh arehen kecholin. The Gemara answers that this matter is a dispute between the Tanaim, as it is taught in a bride to the halachic status of non-sacred food items that were prepared on the level of purity of sacrificial food is like that of non-sacred foods, and they are incapable of assuming third degree impurity. Rabbi Elazar, son of Tzadok, says the halachic status of non-sacred food items that were prepared on the level of purity of sacrificial food is like that of truma. Accordingly, a primary source of ritual impurity is able to render two items impure. The food item with which it comes into contact assumes the first degree impurity, and the food item with which that came into contact assumes second degree impurity, and that item is able to disqualify one further item which assumes third degree impurity but will not render sacrificial food impure with fourth degree impurity. According to both opinions in this brayta, non-sacred food prepared with the purity of sacrificial food does not disqualify sacrificial food. According to the Mishnah and Taharot, it does disqualify sacrificial food. Rabbi Shimon Omer Hushu b'shchita Amar Alavasi Omer Hayar Rabbi Shimon Shchita Somach Sheres Lodam The Mishnah states in 33a, in the case of one who slaughters a domesticated animal, an undomesticated animal or a bird, and blood did not emerge from them, Rabbi Shimon says they were rendered susceptible to ritual impurity by means of the slaughter itself. Rav Asi said that Rabbi Shimon would say it is slaughter that renders it susceptible to ritual impurity, and not the blood that emerges during the slaughter. Rabbi Shimon omer, the Gemara suggests, let us say that the Mishnah supports the opinion of Rav Asi. Rabbi Shimon says they were rendered susceptible to ritual impurity by means of the slaughter itself. The Gemara asks, what? Is it not that Rabbi Shimon is saying by means of the slaughter and not by means of the blood from the slaughter? The Gemara answers, no. Perhaps Rabbi Shimon is saying the animal can be rendered susceptible to ritual impurity by means of blood and also by means of slaughter. Tashima, Amar lehen Rabbi Shimon, Mechita machshir, ve'lo shchita machsheres, the Gemara suggests, coming here as a bright supports Rav Asi's statement, Rabbi Shimon said to the rabbis, it is blood that renders the animal susceptible. Is it blood that renders the animal susceptible to ritual impurity, but isn't it slaughter that renders it susceptible? This indicates that Rabbi Shimon holds that it is specifically the slaughter and not the blood that renders the flesh susceptible to impurity. The Gemara rejects this proof. This is what Rabbi Shimon is saying to the rabbis. Is it blood alone that renders the animal susceptible to impurity? Slaughter too renders it susceptible. So they're suggesting that Rabbi Shimon also holds that blood renders it impure, but the slaughter itself also renders it impure. Okay, Tashuma Rabbi Shimon omer, dam hameis yin machshir, mai lav adam shchita machshir, lo, adam chalali machshir, adam shchita mai lo machshir. The Gemara suggests, coming here, Bride, contrary to Rav Asi's statement, Rav Shimon says, blood of the animal that is dead of natural causes does not render food items susceptible to ritual impurity. What is it? Is it not that one may infer that blood of slaughter renders food items susceptible to ritual impurity? The Gemara rejects this proof. No. Infer that the blood of animals that are killed renders food items susceptible to ritual impurity. The Gemara asks, but with regard to blood of slaughter, what then is the halacha? That it does not render food items susceptible to ritual impurity? Lishma'inan dam shchita v'chol shchin dam hameis. Dam hameis yitrichalei. So kedei tekamina mali katlei ihu mali katlei malach hamavis. Kamash melon. If so, let Rabbi Shimon teach that the blood of slaughter does not render the animal susceptible to ritual impurity, and we will all conclude that all the more so that the halacha with regard to the blood of the animal that is dead as a result of natural causes. The Gemara answers it was necessary for Rabbi Shimon to teach the halacha of blood of the animal that is dead as a result of natural causes, as it could enter your mind to say, what difference is there to me if one killed the animal himself, and what difference is there to me if the animal was killed by the angel of death? In both cases, the blood should render the animal susceptible to ritual impurity. Therefore, Rabbi Shimon teaches us that, unlike blood of an animal that was killed, blood of an animal that is dead as a result of natural causes does not render food items susceptible to ritual impurity, and no inference may be drawn with regard to blood of slaughter. Tashima Rabbi Shimon omer, dam magefato en machshir ma'ilav, hodam shchita machshir lo. The Gemara suggests, coming here, another bright to contrary to Rav Asi's statement. Rabbi Shimon says blood of the wound of an animal does not render other items susceptible to ritual impurity. What is it? Not that one may infer that blood of slaughter renders food items susceptible to ritual impurity. The Gemara rejects this proof. No. Infer that blood of animals that are killed renders food items susceptible to ritual impurity. The Gemara asks, but with regard to blood of slaughter, what is the halacha? That it does not render food items susceptible to ritual impurity? Lashma'inan dam shchita. V'chol shchein dam megifato. Dam megifato is tzrich le'sar kedai tichavina. Malikat le'kulamai malikat le'mapalgat. If so, let Rabbi Shimon teach us that the blood of slaughter does not render the animal susceptible to ritual impurity, and we will conclude that all the more so that the halacha is with regard to blood of its wound? The Gemara answers, it was necessary for Rabbi Shimon to teach blood of its wound, as if it entered your mind to say, what difference is there to me if one killed the entire animal, and what difference is there to me if one killed half of the animal, meaning wounded it. You kill half, meaning this expression for wounded it. What's the difference if you kill it or if you just wound it? In both cases, the blood should render the animal susceptible to ritual impurity. Therefore, Rabbi Shimon teaches that unlike the blood of an animal that was killed, the blood from an animal's wound does not render food items susceptible to ritual impurity, and no inference may be drawn with regard to blood of slaughter. The Gemara asks, what is different with regard to the blood of animals that are killed, that they render food items susceptible to ritual impurity? It is due to the fact that it is written, behold, there are people that rises up as a lioness, and as a lion lifts himself up, he shall not lie down until he eats the prey and drinks blood of carcasses. Numbers 23:24. V'dam chalolim yishteh. V'dam chalolim yishteh. The fact that the blood of carcass, which in the context of the verse is referring to an animal that was killed, is mentioned in the context of drinking, indicates that it is a liquid that renders food items susceptible to ritual impurity. Okay. Dam shchitanami ksiv oh, es ist bin gamayim. With regard to blood of slaughter, it is also written, only you shall not eat the blood, you shall pour it on the earth as water. Deuteronomy 12:16. The parallel to water ostensibly indicates that the blood of slaughter should also render food items susceptible to ritual impurity. The Gemara answers, that verse is not written with regard to susceptibility to impurity. The purpose for which it comes is to permit benefit from the blood of disqualified, consecrated animals. Okay, we'll stop here.